This episode of Ludonarrative Dissidents is brought to you by Juicy Garland. She's a performer in All Our Faults podcast. All Our Faults is a Monster Hearts 2 actual play podcast centered on 4 monstrous teens in the Pacific Northwest. It's unflinching in its ability to explore their darkness with care and honesty. Juicy also ran Delta Green at Gen Con this year, and she's a great handler. I had a great time playing in her game. So thanks, Juicy, for your support, and enjoy this episode. Hello, and welcome to Ludonarrative Dissidents. This is Season 3, Episode 4, Knights Black Agents, Double Tap, our first supplement that we are covering for this season, as that was one of the goals for this season. And this is a player and GM-facing book. But Greg, would you like to explain what Double Tap is about?
Double Tap is basically a grab bag. The idea they've had, a lot of games do these, and I write these frequently, and I kind of love them, where the idea is, okay, now that you've played for a year or two and you get it, we can add more stuff. Because when you are designing a game from scratch, you do not want to put in so much stuff that it's overwhelming. So if I was building D&D from zero today, I might have like 3 species you could play and 3 character classes, and now you've got 9 permutations, and that's plenty. And people can figure that out, and you've got various subsystems for various things, but you can grasp it. And then in another book, it's like, oh, well, now that you've mastered those basic 9 permutations, here's a new species, or here's a new class, or here's an expansion of the rules set. We're going to add in domain management. Won't that be fun? You can be an actual lord and have everyone kiss your ass and plan to backstab you. So Double Tap, if you're not familiar with Knights Black Agents, it is the 2 great tastes that taste great together approach to vampires and techno thrillers. You are the brave forces of colonial intelligence who have discovered, nah, man, vampires are real and they're running the show. and so, you just take off Jason Bourning your way through a Sheridan Le Fanu novel with an MP5 in each hand. And you can listen to our full review of Knights Black Agents in Season 1, Episode 4, which you can find on our website, ludonarrativedissidents.com. Yeah, that was really on the ball. I would have re-listened to that.
I've flipped through the rule book again. I haven't actually re-listened to what we said. But wow, Season 1, Episode 4, it seems a long time ago now.
We were so young then. It was a simpler time.
We were naive. I think there was less banter. I said a lot less because weird time delays and my PC was crap.
Oh yeah, you had that piece of shit. Yeah, I remember that.
Clockwork PC. Yeah. So yeah, it's an interesting one. This because I mean, like I imagine the rest of you and a number of our listeners. In fact, I know a number of our listeners because at least one of them is credited in Double Tap and co-wrote it. Kevin Culp, who is a member of our Discord community.
Hey, Kevin.
and author of I forgot
Time Watch, Swords and the Sword and the Serpentine.
Swords and the Serpentine, yeah. Swords of the Serpentine.
Sorry.
I've worked on a number of these, and I went in expecting, it's a gear book, is what I thought, which is a long tradition of role-playing supplement. I think the first one I'm aware of is the Palladium, I think it was the Handbook of Weapons and Armor. It came out, I think, in 1981, which is just, I think, uses artwork that Palladium are still using today.
Yep.
Just pictures of swords and armor and stuff. And for what it is, it's fine. And I was expecting essentially
You know, James, what a sword looks like has not changed that much since the 90s, or indeed in the past 400 years.
Yeah, but the quality of artwork in role-playing games very definitely has changed in the last 3, 4, 5 decades.
Well, can't argue with you there.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so the Palladium one is certainly the first one that I'm aware of just kind of general expansion stuff for the game, rather than being kind of targeted expansions or a scenario, or here's another section of the world, or here's Griffin Mountain, here's whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. All right, James, as our resident games historian, was it? I want to say it was the Chromebooks for Cyberpunk 2020 that really kind of busted this wide, right? Where they're like, no, we've got this down because we're a science fiction game that is extremely gear focused. So we can really, that this is a real golden marketing opportunity for us. And so, I think they that was the line that really got it to a science.
Absolutely, which I think is about 1990, although, again, I'm prepared to be corrected on that. But the other thing that the Chromebooks did was they loaded this stuff with style. Rather than just, here is a list of new stuff that your character can take, new stuff your character can do, they presented it. I think the Chromebooks were essentially in-world documents. They were catalogs or magazines from within the cyberpunk world.
It was like the IKEA or LL Bean catalog of the shitty dystopian future, which our current tech bro overlords have actually constructed.
The Sky Mall, but for guns.
Yeah. It's which is a brilliant concept, which has now been utterly overused by primarily Wizards of the Coast with D&D, doing so many in-world. Just going back to the in-world document again. While I'm on the roll, I think the first one of those is the Book of Ebon Bindings for Empire of the Petal Throne, which is a book on demons and how to summon them, written by a priest within the game world. And is absolutely fascinating. And I have a theory that it's one of the reasons for the Satanic Panic, because if you read it straight without understanding what a role-playing game is, it does appear to be a manual of demonology. And fantastic. It's very...
Thanks a lot, M.A.R. Baker. It wasn't enough to just be a Nazi.
Yeah. It's, yes, Barker, not Baker. But yes.
Okay.
A troubled figure. Doubtless we'll come on to Empire of the Petal Throne in some future episode, in some future season. But yeah, the whole idea of doing an in-world document is great. And Double Tap is not that.
No, it is not. I was going to say World of Darkness. Then, once that territory had been established, World of Darkness moved in and built its little house there, and is like, this is my land now.
Pretty much.
This is my fiefdom, my little in-character fiefdom.
What Double Tap is it's very, very aware of its genre and the genre that it exists within, and to a large extent, the content within it. It's not simply new gears and new skills. It's not new skills. It's expansions to the existing skills, making sure that you understand how they fit within this genre of techno thrillers. Basically, high action espionage against the supernatural. Because I read through the skill list going, these all seem kind of obvious. Aren't these in the basic book? And then I went to the basic. Yes, they are in the basic book. These are just expansions of those skills, showing how they can be used, often with kind of little plot segments or stuff you could do in the game with them, so that it helping the players understand information that their characters would know, situations that their characters would find themselves in or would be familiar with. There's the trick about knowing what time a car moves by putting an old or a cheap analog watch under one of the tires so that it gets crushed as the car goes under it. Your character would know that. You as a player now know that because you've read it in the book. So you can, and it's just full of that. It's full of color and atmosphere and little stylistic points, cool bits from 1,000 different spy and action and techno movie and hacker movies as well. There's quite a lot of hacker stuff in there. And it's not often I get excited reading a gear book. I am no longer 13. I do not get turned on by guns and swords on their own. But there's so much richness in here, so much clever stuff, so much love for the genre that you come out the other end feeling excited for the game, which is what a good gear book should do. And, and just more informed as well.
Well, okay. And so the feeling I got out of this, my feelings were mixed. I mean, it's well written despite having 93 uses of will in 134 pages. And I saw an unbalanced column on page 82, James. So.
Oh, there's a lot of them. Yeah, the layout is not great.
The layout is the Pelgrane house style. Like all of their books are laid out this, and they're not going to change it. they found
they
a
might
format that
if we keep being whiny little about it, they
Hectoring
might change, Ross. I have to believe this. It's the only way I can get to sleep at night without the pills.
Next time I see Kat Tobin, I'll sit down with her I'll take some printed out pages with red circles and arrows on the back of each one.
Oh yeah, she'll love that. This will deeply endear
no,
you.
The intervention is a stretch goal for our next season.
Kat, who's notably known for her calm temper and the ease as which she takes constructive criticism.
Now, the way you got to approach it, James, is you're like, Kat, Greg's not doing so well.
Well, you mentioned mixed feelings about this.
My mixed feelings. Let's get back to that because, all right, because I wrote it down. So it seems to me the large part of the fun in Night's Black Agents is plausible, wild, techno-thriller bullshit where you're like, oh, well, my character, the grizzled old medical vet, knows how to get the fingerprint off the charred skin on this corpse. And this book is trying to teach you how to create, is giving you 10,000 examples of plausible, wild techno-thriller bullshit. If you haven't read 10,000 techno-thrillers or 10,000 speculative vampire novels or, all the other stuff that's in there, this is, I want to say, my guess is actually that the writers of this did not do that much research as much as they sought out writers who were the kind of people who just like, well, of course I know how you make a homemade silencer. Everybody knows that. What do you mean you want me to write about the history of plastic explosives? Doesn't everybody know the history of plastic explosives? So if you aren't natively equipped with Mission Impossible blarney, this book kind of tries to coach you and get you up to speed and be like, okay, here are some of the things that your expert pickpocket character can say and do. And, look, this is okay in this game. We're showing you how okay this is because it is not a fully physics simulation game like D&D kind of sort of gesturally purports to be, or like a lot of other trad games claim to be. I mean, physics emulation is a fata morgana that you can follow to your death and never be satisfied. So the reason for my mixed feelings is I'm like, yes, I can very much imagine being the guy who got stuck playing the hacker character because the group needed one and I'm a good sport and, don't want to let my whiny crybaby self fully flourish. But where I'm like, I don't know what a TCP is. I barely can get a USB thing in its little slot. And so, yes, give me a crutch, give me a script, give me, something that I can throw on the fire to create a smoky distraction. But there are times when I'm like, this feels like the book is having fun on my behalf. that it's doing the things that are the fun bit for me.
Okay,
Yeah,
so I have a different.
am
I see where you're coming from, but I have a different perspective of this.
Okay.
Because I ran a Night's Black Agent campaign, and
Drink.
Drink. Tribes of Tokyo and RPP, our actual play. Two of my players were very into it. It was set in Tokyo, and two of my players, Caleb Stokes and Aaron, who were very much interested in Japanese culture, and also like Caleb in particular. He writes for Delta Green. He's really into techno thriller. And he is like a fish to water. He just loved it.
It's his job.
Yeah, he came up with it. He was a great planner. But two of my other players were not like interested in like Nice Black Agents is a game of finesse. It's about getting that force multiplier, not just meeting force on first because the vampire is stronger than you, but outwitting or outmaneuvering the vampire in such a way that your minuscule resources overcomes their greater resources. And not every player has that level of interest in reading about spies and espionage and tradecraft. And this book would have been enormously helpful. Be like, here's what your abilities can do. Start thinking like a spy, not like a real spy, but like a movie spy, like Ronin, like Mission Impossible, and not like the early Mission Impossible. Yeah, or even Burnos is a great example. But this would have been very helpful in my campaign because I could have given this player, see, like your abilities can do this. Here's some examples of what you could do, because they didn't have that framework in their head, that sort of like attention to detail to really figure out ways to out finesse the opposition. And I think one of the big values of this book, because this is a really sort of like, yeah, you have to spend a lot of time reading up on the history of plastic explosives and like underground finance systems and like hacking and that kind of thing to be able to be plausible, because like every role playing, like Dungeons and Dragons, like it's fantasy tropes and it is force on force. Can you magic and swords defeat the enemy? And like the enemy is supposed to be defeated.
Probably yes.
Yeah. But in this one, it's the vampire is massively stronger than you in a straight fight. And so you have to outflank them. You have to outwit them.
You have to be General Cho's chicken with a shotgun.
The value of a supplement is that you don't have to do all this legwork to play a game. It gives you all, because like most people, aren't professional game designers and don't professionally research the history of plastic explosives. And so it would be nice for someone to like, here's the shortcuts, here's the stuff that will sound plausible, because this isn't like the verisimilitude of actually being a spy, because there's, vampires in the game. Like it's still fantasy, but like it has to have that veneer of plausibility.
Right.
And this gives you the veneer. Yeah.
And
yeah.
One of the things that I'm sure I commented on when we talked about Night's Black Agents the first time, and which I really should have listened to. But there is sort of a grid of possible ways to play it. And
yeah, in the game, they have the Wilderness of Mirrors, the
yeah, you can think of it as
the Tom Clancy. Yeah.
The horizontal stack of rows is what kind of spies are you? And the vertical lines of columns are what kind of vampires are they? So are you like Tom Clancy spies? Are you like movie spies? Are you like John le Carré spies or George Smiley kind of spies? Are the super realistic option is Dust, and the more cinematic options are, I'm trying to remember what they are.
Well, I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's like Tom Clancy, like
right. And Mission so Impossible, then, are your vampires actual satanic beings? Are they, the traditional Eastern European blood-sucking, night-stalking undead freaks? Are they aliens? Is it all a weird techno thing? So you get a bunch of different potential games all built off the same framework. And so this extends on that complexity where it's like, okay, so here's a bunch of new things you can do with this ability, unless you're in a Dust game, in which case, presumably, you just signed up to eat pain and that's your bag.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, Dust is, oh yeah, you're very, very competent, but merely human. Whereas other options are like, yes, you're very, very competent by the standards of John Woo.
Yeah.
Yes, other ones are you're in a movie, basically. It's a fictional universe, whereas Dust at least pretends to be kind of vaguely real. And I think this is one of the things that the book does really well. In a lot of situations, people will just be going, I'm in this situation X. I don't know what to do because I, as the player, don't know, but my character would. I'm therefore just going to roll against a skill. And, I succeed. And it's, okay, you've succeeded. You don't know what you actually did. And you can get away with stuff in Dungeons & Dragons, which you mentioned, Ross, because the mind fills in the pictures. You cast a fireball. How do you cast a fireball? You roll some dice. You say, I cast fireball, you roll some dice, and your mind just fills in the pictures. In any kind of espionage game, I do a thing, I plant a bug or whatever, you roll some dice, but you don't know what it looks like unless you've watched a lot of techno thrillers.
Unless you've watched a lot of techno thrillers, yes.
Or unless you've read Double Tap.
I'm not even going to say techno thriller game. I'm going to say most modern games. I mean, most of us have never been in a car chase or much of a foot chase or a gun battle.
Yeah. But we've experienced them viscerally at secondhand through, various media, whether that's, film, TV or video games. So a lot of us kind of have been in firefights because that's one of the things that video games do extremely well. Combat has always been the center of an awful lot of AAA games. But it is the more tradecrafty stuff that's at the heart of Double Tap. Double Tap, like I said, I went in expecting a gear book. I expected a lot of gear. I think there's about 6 pages on weapons in there, in a 132-page book, which I found enormously refreshing. Because it is primarily about the stuff that we haven't seen in much media. We've seen through people's eyes in car chases. As you say, Greg, we haven't experienced it ourselves, but, we know the basic idea, handbrake turns and the rest of that stuff. We may never have done one, but we know what they look like.
We know that at some point, 2 workmen in coveralls are going to carry a giant plane of plate glass across the street. We all know what we must do.
There will be a woman with a pram.
I mean, as one example of your point, James, some of the abilities in Nice Black Agents are fairly abstract, like human terrain and like traffic analysis. And what does that even mean? I mean, the game itself explains the term, but like here you get an example of like how you would do traffic analysis, which is dumpster diving. You go through the trash, you sort through it, and you figure out like what they're buying and what they're throwing away, and possibly grabbing shredded documents and trying to piece them together. And that's how traffic analysis looks and sounds, is rooting through a dumpster to find secrets that were careless or to get some clue.
It's interesting you call that one out as something that most people won't have experienced, because I trained as a journalist in Britain in the early 1990s. Part of it was, you go through their trash.
Trash is the best, James.
I got out of journalism. I got out of news journalism pretty quickly. I have seen how the sausage is made. I do not like those sausages. But point taken. And the other thing is, it's not just the players. The GM as well can read through this stuff. And there's so rich in potential adventures or potential situations in adventures that they can pull out. Just little lines. There's one that stuck out with me. I forget which section it's in, but it says, "You thought the blood ruined the hard drive. The blood is the hard drive." I was just like, oh, wow. Yes, great. Blood-powered laptops. Actually, that might explain what was wrong with my old one. It would explain why it was making those noises anyway. But all of this stuff, it's rich. This is not a book that expands the breadth of the game, and it doesn't expand the depth, the crunchiness of it. It's umami, it's flavor, it's a richness.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, it does expand what the game engine does, but in a very smart way, which to my mind, which is, it's like, okay, you know how there are these rules for running chases in the core rulebook, which if you've bought this book, you probably get those, like them, have used them. Here's how you can rejigger those a little bit and reframe them. So now this is how you expand it out for, your surveillance, where it's the quiet duel of, have I been made? Do I need to shift the lead to the next pursuer back and disappear? Or alternately, they're on to me. How quickly can I change my disguise with a shoplifted baseball cap? Let me find my note on this, by the way. It's on like page 79, is they're like, okay, here's how you can use the mechanics that are for extremely cool car chases and have them for your bladder busting computer hacking session. And I'm thinking back to Cyberpunk 2020 again, which had the problem of, okay, the rest of you can go down the street and grab burgers at the good place, because we're running the cyber jockey guys bit now. We're gonna be in cyberspace for a while. Go stretch your legs, and and they're trying to make this the hack cool, and I give them points for acknowledging the problem. I'm not sure they've solved the problem.
It's not as important to it as, say, like a cyberpunk game, a genre game, because those things can be hand waved, made into a single skill check, or point spend actually in the system, and you just move on.
But they acknowledge that. I mean, a lot of being a good GM is pacing, right? Anybody disagree? Anybody want to fight me on this? This is, I'm not going to die on this hill. I'm going to live on this hill.
Well, that sounds like a topic for a live stream, because that's a tangent I'd play devil's advocate for, but we're focused. We need to focus on the.
You're dialed in. You're laser focused on NBA.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, even if pacing is not the most crucial GMing skill, it's one, right? And this is like, okay, sometimes the really important part is not going to be the fight at the end. It's going to be, especially in this game, where the fight is often, oh yeah, you got 2 shots to him center mass, and then he dissolves into a cloud of bats made out of blood and tears you to pieces and tears the guy standing next to you to pieces. And yeah, he got a piece of the third guy too before smashing through the window and flying away. So third guy, you get to explain to Control about the bats. So that's a valuable piece of information, though I'm not sure it was worth 2 PCs dying for. So because you're maybe not wanting to do the big fight every session, here it's like, okay, what if the big thing is we are going to sneak in to the blood orgy at Castle Dracula undetected, move around just acting like we're normal blood orgy people. We're going to wear the right shirts and corsetry and the proper kinds of boots and choker collars with big ruby gnarls on them. We're going to sneak in, and here's how we're going to avoid the cameras, and here's how we're going to get to where the documents explaining that actually Dracula's pretty vanilla, and that, we're going to sneak these out and publicize it to ruin his reputation in the vampire underground. Right. And that could be, it's like, make a disguise roll, make an intrusion roll. But this is like, here's how, when you want to stretch that out.
Yeah.
Here's how you stretch it out.
That's the one of the values of this book is not just it explains things, it gives more context. it has like, you mentioned all these little bits that are gameable, like little ideas, little story seeds that you can pull and say like, oh yeah, I can use this, I could do this, and just reading the player section would give it GM ideas, and I think that's sort of the value. But so just to give a brief, we haven't even mentioned the whole table of contents because we sort of focused on the first third of the book, which are explaining the abilities players can have and giving them new ways to use them. But then they have the new thriller tricks of the trade, which are new game mechanics, like you mentioned, for the hacking rules and adaptive tradecraft. And then there's the gear guide, which again is like 13 pages or so. Let's see here. Then we have a director's section too. Yeah. Sorry.
Can I make a comment about the gear guide that I think will kind of branch off one of James's observations, where they're like, yeah, the players kept telling us, man, we really want a big list of guns, and give us the big list of guns, give us the big list of guns. And they're like, and we're not going to, because instead of, you say you want that, but what you really want is this internet thing where you can poke in a movie's name and it will tell you every gun that's in that movie. And that's much more useful to your purposes than us doing it, because this not being a a dedicated combat simulator as much as it is a dedicated investigation simulator, most of these guns have the same mechanics. So, just do that. And here's a few mechanics that you can spice it up with, but we don't need to do an exhaustive list. So I respect that, because I'm like, they could have done the easy thing, but instead stayed true to what the game's about.
Creating a system where, the new firearms abilities, the gun cherries, allow, like, the big heavy gun can be intimidating to people, so they have to spend points just to even shoot back, because, oh god, he's using a Magnum.
Oh my god, it's so big and low born.
But there is a section for the GM, the Director's Companion, which we should explain at some point. But like, I just want to mention that there are like a couple of new monsters and some new mechanics from the GM's perspective. Interesting ideas on variant era, so you can do your historical era. A lot of espionage can be done in the Victorian Age or the World War II or the
Great
Cold War.
Game.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, you thought fighting vampires was hard. Try doing it with a flintlock rifle, my man.
This is like James mentioned, this is a grab bag. There's a lot of interesting material, just a little bit of everything. Well, a lot of stuff for the players to give them enough context to be spies without actually having to, spend 100 hours absorbing spy media to really get it. There's also one really unique thing, which I have started seeing more recently in other RPGs, but I do want to talk about the achievement refreshes, which I think is a really fun mechanic. And definitely, tabletop RPGs have influenced video games, and video games have influenced tabletop RPGs. And this is the most blatant example of it.
You don't say, Ross. You don't say.
So the achievements are essentially a list of things characters can do to get a refresh, which means a 3 points of whatever general ability they seems to make sense by doing certain things. For example, one of them is called Gordon Ramsay, mix easily available household chemicals into something that explodes, which I find quite...
I'm not sure Gordon Ramsay... I mean, he easily explodes, but I'm not sure his recipe.
I thought the Gordon Ramsay one was for having a fight in a restaurant kitchen where you use a bunch of improvised weaponry.
That's the next one. Guava half, kill a bad guy with a weapon improvised from something innocuous. There's a couple pages of suggested achievements, and then rules sort of, my favorite obviously is Yojimbo. Engineer a violent showdown between two competing criminal factions, which is the heart of every good role-playing game, is getting two groups of bad guys to fight each other. Sorry, James.
They don't have to be that bad.
Yeah.
So some of these are a lot simpler to do than others. Some of them are things you can engineer in kind of a couple of minutes, and some are, the Yojimbo one, that's going to take at least half a session of play at the very, very least. But it is worth noting these are all suggested ones. There is a long list, and it just says choose the ones you like or make up some new ones. And it's interesting because achievements and achievement points are inherently a meta thing. It's like you succeed within the game, you get a reward outside the game. Experience points are the same, and we've talked about meta currencies.
Okay, just to be the nagging killjoy, which is, that's the core of being a good game designer. It's knowing how and when to suck all the fun out of everything is, and I know why not, but devil's advocate, why not just say, oh, if your character does something really cool, give them a refresh. GMs, just if they kick ass, and the reason they don't do that is that's 3 sentences and they had a half page to fill up. Yeah. Maybe I'm being...
I do have that. And that whole thing, you do something cool, you get points for it, or you get a reward, a statistical reward or a mechanical reward. Toon did that, if you can make the GM crack up.
I mean,
you get points.
That was Robin's... That was his move back when he was getting started out. It's like, hey, look at Feng Shui. It's the game where instead of having to pay a bunch of points and being punished for doing this physically implausible thing, you are instead going to get rewarded for doing this physically implausible thing. And the less plausible it is, but more cool, the more reward you will get. And that was Feng Shui, and everyone said, I
think the key, though, here, the difference is the achievements, at least some of them, should be told before the players pull something off. Yeah. That creates an interesting dynamic, because then the players are like, I could just shoot the guy, or I could fucking go for that achievement and do something really risky because I think I can roll a 4 or better on this D6. Let's go. That sense of risk and reward.
I'm feeling lucky.
Yeah.
And it does. But again, if you've got big goals like the Yojimbo thing, it's why are you specifically trying? Why is your character specifically trying to set these two gangs at odds with each other? Is it because the GM has a reason to make you want to do that? Which is what we did in Paranoia. In the Paranoia reboot, we also had achievements, but they are in-game. They are given to you by your player characters by the computer at the start of the mission, who goes, and if you do these, you will get extra XP points. Not expect it specifically says in the rules that XP points, and if anyone asks you what XP stands for, it doesn't stand for anything, because the world of our version was thoroughly gamified. So, and sometimes the computer has reasons for making you want to try and do things in the course of the adventure, because either it'll go hysterically funnily for the GM, or because there's an ulterior motive, or because a high programmer has entered this achievement for you to do in order to screw up somebody else's scheme down the line. I think you have to be quite careful with something like this. Yes, it's a lot of fun. It adds a level of jocularity. It does add this meta level of trying to do things and trying to get the extra reward, and it is quite video gamey. But it can distract players from their mission goal in order to get the gold ring or the brass, which I discovered the other day. I always thought it was a metaphor, and it's not. It's to do with American carousels.
You reach out and try and grab one,
Yeah. What did you think, James, that we were just going to have something where the point of it was the simple pleasure of the experience and not a competition with rewards?
That's how carousels work in the rest of the world, where we just like being on a carousel. There is no... You don't have to go for the reward.
I'm so sorry that you haven't figured it out, James. Just... be there with your simply fun carousels and your meters and
Americans
liters.
Are very literal minded. We don't believe in metaphors.
Horses go round. It's lovely. You don't have to want to try and succeed. You don't have to try and win a carousel ride.
But here you can.
Yep.
So yeah, I've distracted myself and lost my thread.
I'll say this about the achievements. I feel like, again, this is one of those things where it's like, but if you're playing Dust, I mean,
it specifically says don't do it if you're running Dust.
Right. I mean, there's only one achievement in Dust. It's like you get a free refresh if you're
the Janus achievement, I think, which is
I was just I was like, the one I do in Dust is like a close family member cuts off all contact.
Yeah.
That would be the one that gets you the refresh. Yeah, your daughter no longer speaks to you, but you get a free refresh to your pickpocketing.
Well, it does also say lower to 1 point instead of 3 points, and the Janice one is,
so it's not even that good. You just
exactly.
And you've broken the family for 1 point.
Well, the other one, Janice, is confronting the mole in your organization with proof of their guilt. So yeah, it's a neat little section, but yeah, it fills a couple of pages, but I think that's fine to have a little extra in there. There's also a lot of advice in the both in the player and the director's section to explain this is not like a D&D game. You can run away, you can hide, you can be. You're supposed to be,
and often should.
Yeah. It's about not fighting fair. So.
I got to look at page 62 because there was something on there where I'm like, this is particularly good advice, which I like.
Support other players.
Support other players was probably it. Yeah. Okay, and drop into my reading voice. Some players are more comfortable pulling out spy genre conventions at the drop of a hat, and levels of player expertise varies. Always be thinking about how to make the game more fun for the other people at the table. That may mean considering cool questions that could be answered with their abilities, or engineering ways for them to use their specializations in unexpected ways. If you're the player who manages to keep your wheelman involved and useful in an operation with no driving, you're going to make the game more fun for everyone. Mm-hmm. And I liked that. As you could tell from the velvety voice I read it in. I think this is a very simple attitude switch that can really nourish games, because so many, and this is, I think, a lot less true now. We've discussed before the shift away from antagonistic role-playing games towards more collaborative. But I don't think we've covered the fact that back in the dark days of antagonistic gaming, you were often competing with the other players, or at least just screwing them over for no good reason, just because you were used to the hyper-competitive, gold ring snatching approach to entertainment.
I pickpocket the ranger.
Yeah.
Yes! Yes.
Why? Just because it says you can on your character sheet. Yeah.
I can't even use this wand of fireballs, but I'm stealing it from the wizard for lulz. Yes.
Yeah.
Did D&D break the internet before there was an internet? Impossible to prove. But
yes,
once you switch into that, like, I'm going to have this homeopathic dose of GM attitude, of good GM attitude in my playing, where it's like, oh, can I set up my fellow player for a slam dunk? Instead of me making the slam dunk, I'm going to do the pass. And it's teamwork and half for self, half for others. Yeah. And so I'm into it.
Absolutely.
Strongly endorsed.
It reminded me of something that Kieran Gillen posted. Kick-Ass comics writer, also the designer of the Die RPG, which has been a huge hit for Rowan, Rook and Deckard, posted on he posted it on Blue Sky, but it was a link to his Tumblr, and it's something that he's previously put in his email newsletter. But it's just general player advice for RPGs. You don't often see player advice, as you see. I won't read the whole thing. It is very good. I'm sure it will be much recopied across the internet. But the seven headers are: 1, make choices that support the table's creative goals. 2, be a fan of the other characters. 3, be aware of the amount of spotlight time you're taking, which I think is a really good point. 4, learn what rules apply to you to smooth the game, not derail it. 5, make choices which support other characters' reality. 6, ensure the group understands who your character is. 7, if asked a preference in a story game, a strong choice is almost always better than a middling choice. And then at the top he says, I also didn't include buy the GM stuff, which I would put in as a hard 8 on that. Buy the GM stuff. It just improves the role-playing generally. But that's a
Oh,
really
you
strong
mean buy
list.
stuff for the GM?
Buy
I'm
stuff
like,
for the GM, or buy the GM store. You know, most of us have online stores these days. Not that I'm hinting in any way. I'm hinting. But just the whole idea of advice to players, and I think this has partly come out of the actual player community, watching how other people role play in a way that supports the other players and supports the group and supports the story and supports the GM instead of making the GM's life harder. We're going to see more of this, and I think both of those examples are really strong. I mean, Kieran, he may be famous for the comics he's written, but he is a very long-time gamer, came out of PC gaming and video game reviews, but as long as I've known him, has been playing tabletop.
There it is. Drink.
Oh God, did I drop a name in? Oh, I'm so sorry. We used to write Warhammer fiction, not together, but at the same time. So,
James, did you ever read the pieces on my website, how to run role-playing games and how to play role-playing games?
I don't believe I ever have.
Well, they are not only on there, they are under the Creative Commons license that allows people to use them commercially as long as they don't change anything. So, yeah, they've shown up in a couple different places.
That's cool. One place they will be showing up is in the show notes for this episode, which will be on the ludonarrative.dissidents.com website. Exhaustive notes on everything we've mentioned in the show, where you can find copies, a little bit more of the history and stuff. We are now doing that for every episode in this season. And when I get some time, I will do it for seasons 1 and 2 as well, because I am a glutton for punishment.
Poor James.
I love it.
Yeah. You're very good show notes.
James is like, no, Greg, I'm into it.
So I think at this point we could start talking about the GM section as well, since we're talking about GMing.
It's worth saying it's only like a quarter of the book.
Yes.
The book is 132 pages, I think. The GM section is about 25, 26.
It starts on 91, so yeah, and there's like, an index and a couple, charts and things at the end of the book. So yeah, you're about, that sounds right. The first section are the cameos, which are, I find this is like the bread and butter of what a GM needs. NPCs you can come up with at the drop of a hat. It's not just like, here's the stats of an auto mechanic. No, the auto mechanic's name is Robbie. Here's what he looks like. Here's what he could be as an asset or as a clue, or how he would work, how you would role play him in a game.
Those didn't do much for me, but then I'm like,
you can make those up at the drop of the hat because you're an accomplished writer and game designer, Greg.
Yes,
not everybody has, spent years and years writing and creating worlds in their mind. So, yeah.
Okay, well, this is back to the XKCD comic about, most people don't know much about geology. They probably can't name more than 4 kinds of quartz.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I reckon, even I would probably grab a couple of these, or at least skim them for ideas. Because these are flesh, even though they're archetypes, custom agents, let's see here, hacker, longshoreman, et cetera, et cetera. There's enough here that I could grab them, or you get ideas from them, this occult bookstore owner knows who bought that trove of 17th century Dracula pamphlets that surfaced in Hanover. I was like, 17th century Dracula pamphlets, you say? Well, that sounds cool.
This seems relevant to my interests.
Yeah, and then there's the next section are establishing shots, which are like, here's what a location is like the carnival, or the glassy skyscraper, and here's some game mechanics that could affect playing in the glassy skyscraper. Like, there's more guards, it's hard to guard this large of a structure. So it's just little modifiers that make locations, it's taking archetypes and tropes and fleshing them out enough so that they're not all cut out. They're not all the same. Every location feels just different enough that it's like fighting in a skyscraper is different than fighting in a train or on a gondola or at a masquerade ball. And these subtle differences.
Will you run a game where I fight on a gondola, please?
I actually rode a gondola last month. I've been thinking about gondolas. I will be happy to do that.
These are gondolas, meaning cable cars.
Yeah.
Basically. Yes.
Oh.
Not Venice.
I guess that's cool too.
Yeah, these are it's 100 feet above the mountainside, swaying in the wind as it passes support pylons. Yeah, that one.
I mean, that could still be a Venice gondola, but something would have gone very wrong.
Yeah, I don't know why. Yeah, it's on its way up the slope of the extinct volcano. I don't know of any volcanoes near Venice. Things have gone pretty pear-shaped.
Yeah, I just want the fight in the Venice gondola, and the poor guy in the back with the striped shirt is just all, Mamma mia, what are you?
Yeah,
singing.
Great accent work there, Greg.
Thank you. I'm very proud of it. My Italian ancestors are all spitting on me from the grave now. It's amazing.
So I really like this because it's, again, taking a load off of a busy GM and giving them ideas on things to use, because you could take these mechanics and apply them to different areas. Like the rainforest is like, it's strenuous heat during the midday heat. Well, that could apply to you have to make a health check, otherwise you're hurt. Well, you could apply that to a desert as well. Or any other sort of rugged outdoor environment. So like
Florida.
Florida, exactly. Like 500% humidity. It's or being in a hurricane or something like that. So there's a lot of little interesting stuff here. It's again not revolutionary within the context of the game, but it's like it gives you ideas and saves you time. And so you don't have to, like, the less time you have to worry to write up how a skyscraper works, the more you can focus on the original stuff. Like,
How does a skyscraper work? Well, it's very tall.
Yeah.
Well, the central lift shaft, or, build out around the, how the structure is, so that if something hits it, like, I don't know, a jet, how it's likely to fall down. I think it's a valid thing to have in there.
Yeah. And then we have actually the bestiary section of it. So there's like about 5-6 pages of new vampire or vampiric monsters entities.
My single with the Panagalon. I've always been a Panagalon fan. I was into Panagalons before they were cool. But the thing that got me on this one, which I hadn't known about, is transform into motorcycle. And I'm like, okay, this wins. I didn't know this was a competition, but that one grabbed the brass ring.
So it's a were motorcycle? A were?
Well, that's just one of the...
page 109, they are a Malaysian monster, a floating head that detaches from the body and entrails dangling, and
James, a Panagalon.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. One of the, I never heard it said out loud, but
apparently, yes, a part of the mythology is that they take other forms and disguise themselves as motorcycles or shafts of light or just whatever. And I like that on one hand because it's like, okay, yeah, that's such a folkloric detail that a fiction writer would never use because it just doesn't, because of vibes. But the very reason it feels folkloric is because of vibes.
Yes. The trouble is, who would use the motorcycle, and that's the player characters. They're going to find themselves riding this thing, quite literally. And yeah, that would be funny. And
more for the that's the achievement, to ride the Pangolin motorcycle,
the Panagala cycle.
Yeah. There's your achievement. I thought these entities, the Homunculus and Nosferatu, the Chupa, and also the new abilities, Bloodworking and Curse, are pretty a good stand-up additions.
I mean, if you don't own Vampire the Masquerade or Requiem, yes.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, you did.
Well, I mean, it's statted up in this system as opposed to that. So that's the value, is that you don't have to do all the stat work for these creatures. James?
Yeah, I'm going to say, I might have said it actually when we did Night's Black Agents, the core rules. I'm not big on new monsters. I don't think they are of benefit to most role-playing games. They're just kind of variety for the sake of keeping something fresh by giving you something new to fight against. When we did Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, one of our kind of in-house things that we never made clear to anyone except people writing for us was no new big monsters. You can produce a one-off that exists only for the purpose of whatever adventure or piece of background you're doing. It is not a new species. It does not. This is not anything. There are enough large carnivorous species in this world already an implausible number. And I think it keeps the focus on the story and the cleverness of the story. If you're just throwing new monsters, it's like, okay, whoa, what is this threat? What's its weakness? What do we have to do to beat this one? Oh, it turns into a motorcycle. Cool. I'm not a big fan of. I know a lot of people are. I know literally millions of books of new monsters have been sold for so many different role-playing games. But I don't think it helps most role-playing games achieve better story or richness of world. It just, every time there's another one, you just go, oh, it's another thing that exists somehow in this increasingly implausible ecosystem of, in this case, massively powerful vampires.
The difference between Night's Black Agents and Warhammer is Night's Black Agents is a toolkit game where the GM specifies exactly what is real or what is not. So if you have a Nosferatu, you can just say it's just the Nosferatu. There's none of the other vampires in the game exist. In fact, I remember in the game, the core game, it's just a vampire creation system to create a custom vampire. So really, this is just like saving you the work to make, your type of unique vampire. So they're alternatives, but they're not all going to exist in the same story. You're not going to run into a vampiric motorcycle and a Nosferatu in the same setting unless
you do.
Yeah, unless that's the point. But like that would be a little. But I mean, I see your point. There are too many apex predators in a lot of RPGs. You know,
it's a lot of them go broad instead of going deep.
Yeah,
but there was this was also something I saw,
and it's very easy to do.
This was something I saw on Blue Sky or Mastodon, and I think it may have been one of the people on the Discord actually that I've started following, but it was about seeing deities and demigods for D&D way back in the day. The one with the one that got in trouble for having the Cthulhu mythos in it because they had the Errol Otis art, which
No,
but
it was great art. No, it was because the Cthulhu mythos had been licensed to Chaosium, as I believe had the Elric mythos, which I think was
it wasn't just Cthulhu. It was some other.
Elric had the Elric one had the best hat I've ever seen. It literally has smoke coming out of it. But what this poster was talking about was that, he did not get this book and then think I'm going to use every pantheon in here, but that he felt energized and inspired by the breadth of what might be in the setting. And that, I mean, it's a little kind of a perverse part of human nature, right? Where it's like, okay, choosing to stay at home and watch TV when you live an hour away from Chicago feels differently than staying at home watching TV when you don't have the opportunity of going to a world-class city just an hour away. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
It's what your choice, what your opportunities are matters. And
I mean, there is value in role-playing books that you get just to read. I know I like reading a good monster manual because cool monsters, like that's it's pretty like I like reading about monsters.
It's like reading an issue of Fangoria back in the day. It's like, again, cool monsters. Oh, look at this one. Oh, its tongue shoots out. Yeah.
There's always the eternal value of reskinning monsters, saying, my guy's Dracula, but he can now turn into a motorcycle. Like grabbing the unique mechanics of a monster and grafting it onto your existing one. Yeah.
Dracula cannot turn into a motorcycle. He turns into a drag racer. That's what the entire Dracula song is about.
The one song legally mandated on all 1990s horror and action film soundtracks. I
thought that was more human than human.
No, I mean, it was on The Matrix. It was in Jet Set Radio. It was in so many things. But anyways,
well, that's what I learned today.
Since we were talking about Nosferatu, not Nosferatu.
Nice.
Oh, thank you. No, this is a complete aside, but if you, my dear listener, if you are not aware of the fact that Robert Eggers, the director of The Witch and The Lighthouse and The Northman, has a movie releasing on Christmas Day, his version of Nosferatu, you should be aware of it, and you should go and watch the trailer right now, because I'm psyched for this.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I've liked all of his previous movies, so I'm looking forward to it.
I've only seen The Vivitch. I liked it, though.
The Lighthouse.
me-
Oh, you should watch The Lighthouse.
I should
Conjuring
watch The
atmosphere.
Lighthouse. I finally saw the 1988 The Blob.
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah. The Thing's little brother. So
Aw, I'm deadly too. I can kill so many humans. Look, I'm gonna get
and
this
he
guy
really
right
does.
outside the phone
it,
booth.
it really does kill so many.
Probably much higher body count than the Thing.
100%. Yeah, exactly. I mean, he eats most of the town.
Well, the thing's
On
kind
the
of
other
limited.
hand,
Yeah, it's true. So, but I think this book does save the best for last, because I think in terms of the mechanics, the sus pyramid is probably the greatest addition to the game's mechanics, because if you remember
shout out to James Palmer.
the original game has the Conspiramid, which is the conspiracy pyramid, the creating an organization with a vampire at the top that the players work their way through, of front organizations and agents and lieutenants to get to the top. And the sus pyramid and that's like a pyramid of nouns, right? Of organizations and people. Yeah. This is an organization. This is a pyramid of verbs. This is how the organization turns on itself, the various factions within it, as the player characters start taking it apart, and everyone
when they're really going for that Yojimbo achievement.
I know, it's great. I love it. Yeah.
Okay, who among us other than me has seen the Daredevil series that was on Netflix?
Yeah.
The first season of that was absolutely this, where it's just like, oh, here is this extremely powerful criminal conspiracy, but everyone in it hates everyone else in it and is suspicious of everyone else in it. And as soon as one dickhead in a black mask shows up and starts poking at it, it all just the whole series is about, let's watch this powerful but fragile thing shake itself to pieces. Mm-hmm. And so this is how you did that gaming.
Yeah. And it creates an escalating level of things that the factions will do to each other that the players could observe or interfere with, or, seize upon as opportunities, from insulting to, at level 1, tier 1, to annihilation at, tier 6 at the very end of things, as they all start killing each other. What I love about this is because this is how Night's Black Agents is different than D&D, because D&D, it's a dungeon. While it is that you can both represent them in sort of a flow chart way, right? Like most dungeons, they sit in their rooms and wait for you to kill them, or there's very little interaction. But in Night's Black Agents, it emphasizes that this is a fluid, evolving situation. As you act, they react, and as they act, you react, and so you go back and forth. And so this gives the GM a large vocabulary to figure out what's happening behind the scenes, and give players sort of hints at, this guy got murdered. You didn't do it. Yeah, who did? Maybe you should find out. Or maybe you should, maybe you don't care who killed him, but now that he's dead, you know that his safe house is unguarded. Why don't you go check that out? Yeah.
And it has this great vocabulary as well, these great game terms. It's not some kind of anodyne. They use the suitors and the beloved. And it's a fairly simple dynamic. The suitors are two rivals who are after the favors of a third party, the beloved, who can be senior to them or below them. And that dynamic, it's just immediately apparent, but the language is so loaded. It's great. Yeah. I loved everything about this.
Yeah. I think this is the single best part about it, because it really makes the Conspiramid come alive. Because now even because I wish I'd seen this when I was running Tribes of Tokyo, because then I would have had the vampires fighting each other, their little organizations, their little, Yakuza outfits would have been started quarreling with each other, or, burning each other's bars down and stuff like that. And so the players could, act upon it.
If Bram Stoker had seen this, there would have been a great scene of Lucy Westenra and Mina Harker pulling each other's hair.
Yeah. Or Renfield, going after Mina or something like that. Yeah. That would have been Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm picturing Jonathan Harker saying, "Should we break them apart?" And who was the cowboy?
Oh yeah. What was his name?
Tex. No.
He had a great name. Dracula Cowboy.
Nuts. Anyway, and him saying, "Well, let's just let this play out for a bit."
Quincy Morris.
Quincy Morris.
Yeah.
Quincy Morris would totally watch that.
Yeah. But yeah, I think this is sort of like the best part of it. And after that, we have the Solitary Heroes, which is like, a page of like, if you want to have one-on-one games, here's some advice. But and then we have our variant eras rules, replacing abilities. Like there's no computer hacking in the Victorian era, obviously, but you can mess with telegraphs.
Only Lord Byron's daughter has computer hacking in the Victorian era, which would be a huge advantage if anyone had listened to her and built her device.
Yeah.
All right, well, I got to throw something out there, a broader observation, because we're coming up on the end here.
Yeah.
But what this made me think about as I was going through the largest section on this is how you use different skills differently and opportunities and here's how you can chrome it and here's how you can get refreshes and here's how you can cross apply. And to me, I'm looking at the fact that reassurance is an entirely different skill from flirting. And I'm like, this seems very granular. And this may be due in part to the sort of developmental history of the authors, because this is what this design is mostly Robin, a lot of Ken and Gareth, and they all came up roughly at the same time as me when there were these huge skill lists, and you kind of fudged around with if you're a psychiatrist, you're going to need psychiatry and psychology and pharmacology, but these will all add to your sensitivity stat. So those will all you can't really build a character who's really, really good at listening, but not really good at seeing but I'm like, I feel like there's been a move to broader categories where it's like, well, instead of there being reassurance and flirting and intimidation, it's just going to be one big emotional leverage ability. And, instead of being, there's your punch and kick and dodge and this other thing and grapple, it's all just a fighting skill, okay? I feel we've been moving that way, and that's probably a good way to move, because I don't think there's a lot of excitement in having a character who is really great at flirting, but really bad at reassurance, to use skills from NBA. And so, but the question this raises is just how granular do you want player character abilities to be? And of course, the deeply unsatisfying answer is, well, it depends from group to group, because, some people want it super duper fiddly and some people want it super broad and hand wavy. But if you're one who likes it super broad and hand wavy, I guess what I should just say is be aware that NBA is on the specific side of the spectrum.
Sure.
And this is part of the reason that they have so much they can write about, is because it's like, okay, there are these very specific ways you can get clues with these investigatory skills. And so when we write these things up, well, we have to address every relevant one. And and I can see exactly why you want that for an investigatory game, to have a broad spread of skills that can apply to it. But I don't know. It's maybe a little broader than I would have done it, but it's equally possible I'm just a Monday morning quarterback here.
Yeah.
I think the thing is, it's a techno thriller. It's, it's in the Clancy style of things. It's about the tech. It's about the tools. It's kind of glorying the tools that you've got to use, to work with. And in RPG terms, those are your abilities just as much as they're the cool thing that you got from Q Division. And there's a brilliant little section on Q Division and how you can just make up a gadget for a specific situation. I think it needs that level of granularity to capture the style and feel of what it's after. The loosey-goosey stuff doesn't work for the genre, or at least wouldn't work for me. And it has to be about that moment where your very particular repelling gear doesn't work for whatever reason. Or you fluff the skill, and you need to know which skill you fluffed and what let you down. It all fits within that. It's not as much as, I screwed up.
You think there's a reason that in Taken, Liam Neeson doesn't say, I have a very generalized set of skills.
Yes, I have 2 or 3 attributes that are surprisingly above average.
Yeah, it's, again, like I said, it's a game of finesse, details, of finding that one sliver of advantage over your opposition that you can multiply,
So maybe my problem with it is just that I'm a big picture guy.
Yeah, I mean, in combat, it's all about like what gun and what, like there are game again. Remember the core game, and they expand on this in this supplement too, of like if you can give a sentence or two description of why your gun is cool enough that you should get a bonus to refresh your shooting skill, then you do. Or like if your EMT, if your medic character needs to heal somebody, like or treat this person who's got a spleen ripped out, like if you can give a paragraph that sounds like how House MD would say it, like then you get your points back. So it's the difference between a hostage negotiator and a con artist. They're both social characters, but they both approach social problems very differently. And their ability to read and manipulate people is very different. And this is a game that's like a hostage negotiator is a very different horse than a con artist, where in a more generalized game, they're just like persuade +4, in a Fate game, or persuade plus 75% in Delta Green. I think that's sort of the difference here. And it's not about being cool, but about being cool in a very specific way that you wouldn't have thought of. And that's why the spy outwits people, because no one else thinks about what the spy does. It's that subtle thing. And that's the core of the genre, the outwitting and outmaneuvering of foes. So,
but of course, I knew you would drink blood. I have been observing you for 18 months. Yeah. Covertly.
Exactly. And that's why I, have swapped it out for cat's blood. Yeah. Any final thoughts after that? There are some nice charts. Yeah.
I have one thing in particular, because it was scanning through. I mentioned the Q section thing, where you can basically go, well, in this situation, when we started this mission, Q gave me this, all my, tech, whoever's issuing me with the tech gave me this particular. It's a flashback, and it refers to itself as the flashback mechanic. And we all go, oh yeah, of course, we've seen that in Blades in the Dark. Blades in the Dark was, I think, 2015, 2016. Yeah. This supplement is 2013, and Night's Black Agents itself is 2011. Where did the flashback mechanic come from? Because everyone goes Blades in the Dark flashbacks.
Oh, yeah.
Clearly it predates that, because Night's Black Agent doesn't make a big thing of it.
No, it doesn't, because on a broader sense, that's the preparedness ability, right? And that's been there since Trail of Cthulhu, since Gumshoe existed. So I think,
I think what we're looking at there is just a question of emphasis, that, you have it in NBA, but it's not. It's a supporting player, not the star of the show. And what Blades in the Dark did was look at that and go like, oh, that guy deserves his own. He deserves his own series. Let's make everything about the flashback. Let's put him front and center instead of having him just be the wacky neighbor who comes in without knocking.
Wow. Yeah.
Did that metaphor make sense, or am I just...
No, I've got another metaphor. It's Dominion. It's the card game Dominion, which won the Spielers Jahres a few years ago. The first of the deck building games, except it's not, because Magic the Gathering is the first deck building game. But in Magic, you do the deck building before the game begins. You take your cards and you shuffle through and you work out which cards you want to play in this particular one. And Donald Vaccarino's genius was to say, why don't we take this, which is fun in its own right, and actually move it inside the game and make the entire game itself about the deck building. And that's the big innovation in Dominion. It sold I think it sold millions of copies. there's over 4,000 deck building games on Board Game Geek now. It's, and
it's a thing.
It's spotting something that the original designer did not realize was that big an idea, I think.
Yeah, iteration. I mean, that's a lot of game design, is like taking an idea and just subtly improving it.
With it.
Yeah.
What if I took this thing you did and made it my big deal?
Well, and also that's what a good supplement does, and I think this does that too. It iterates on Night's Black Agents just a little bit, and adds enough thing that if I was running other Night's Black Agents, I would definitely have this on hand to run.
I think if I was running any espionage game, I would have this. And there's so much good stuff in there. Yes, it's technically about vampires. Actually, for a lot of the book, the vampires really take a back seat. There's only that section in the GM bit where they take come to the fore.
Because this is the book for spies. I'm sure there's a GM's book of vampire stuff.
Yeah,
but this is the spy one, and that's fine. You know what you're getting.
Yeah. So,
but there's so much richness in here. I mean, that's what it adds. Right? It adds richness to the setting.
Expertise.
So if you want to fight the Dracula as a motorcycle in the streets of Berlin.
Ferrari.
Those Ferrari.
I'm sorry, I'm going to use that again.
Oh no, it's very good.
Yeah, we'll be.
That sounds
Ferrari will return.
That sounds like a really good one-page game. So
I'm sure Grant Howitt wrote it last night.
It just had a vision. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode. We had a lot of fun reading and making this episode. Our next episode is actually going to be our first curated episode. And it's going to be on the same theme. We're going to be going back to the 80s with the James Bond RPG. Thanks, Christian Bickley, for curating this episode. It'll be a lot of fun to read up on how espionage RPGs used to be, and we'll take it from there.
Back when I was just a sprout.
Yeah. So it would be interesting to, as a way, since we have this in mind, to see how it used to be, and
compare and contrast.
Speaking of Q section, thank you all so much, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.